This is the FM Gold channel of All India Radio. In the program News Analysis, now we bring you a discussion on US-China trade war and its impact. The participants are Professor Yamini Aggarwal, Economic Analyst, and Shishir Sinha, Journalist.
Let me begin the discussion by today's development. That is, India has put off increasing duty on 29 US products. Earlier that was supposed to come into effect from August 4. Now it will come into effect from September 18. How do you see this?
This development is primarily to ensure that there is no more fuel that has been put into the trade war, which is already being incited by US and China in terms of their retaliations on the tariffs which each of the countries are putting on the other's exports. And primarily India does not want to become a part of the trade war. It wants to protect its national interest, but it does see that it might have threats from the US in terms of levying off more tariffs that are there. And hence India has taken up certain steps to ensure that there are certain things that are on the negotiation table when the India goes in with talks with the US, primarily for different products and services that are there.
But we are not seeing any kind of softer stand by US. They have not given any indication or signal to lower duties on Indian export. So is it good to blink first, then waiting for others to come forward?
Well, when the trade war actually began, it was believed that all those countries where US has a trade deficit of more than 30 billion would actually be targeted. When steel prices were raised or the aluminium tariffs were raised, it was believed that this particular drive would make many of the countries difficult to actually bring about exports to US. India somehow did not get so much affected because one, its steel exports to US were only mere 7% which were there. And then also the US said that we are primarily targeting at China where the deficits are extremely high, which is 1,308 billion US dollars. And so India felt that maybe next in turn, but the US has not directed any specific tariffs on the Indian exports that are there. So somehow or the other, the India is still playing on a safer ground, trying to ensure that it negotiates treaties where it is given exemptions for the tariffs that are there, if there are there for other countries, and those exemptions can help India to further export to US.
When India decided to raise the duty on June 21st, it was said that it is a retaliatory move. Do you justify such move by India?
India did not do it as a retaliatory move. Many of the Asian countries did take US stance over China's exports to be strong enough signal that action will soon be initiated against them. And they did want to ensure that their interests are protected. And while in protecting their interests, they decided that if they have to actually go on for negotiation tables, they would like to go in where they can actually reduce the tariffs which might be there. And hence the strategy of actually increasing the tariff and then bringing them to negotiations would be better than actually having no tariffs and then bringing them down further, which is there. Or having, let's say, a certain amount of tariffs and bringing them down further.
And are you optimistic that within next 45 days we will have a situation where we do not need this kind of notification?
Well, Trump seems to be a little strong on his signals in terms of having trade wars. He does not see it as disbenefit to his country, though there has been signs that the US makers have faced problems because of the increase in the import tariffs that are there. So we don't see much of positive stance coming from Trump as such. However, India has a very strong geographical location in terms of managing the geographical stability that is concerned. Since US cannot control China, it would like to find allies with India primarily to take control over China and other countries that are there. So thereby it is seen that US may not have a strong tariff structure for India, primarily because it does not intend to see another ally go against it. Also, we see that the trade surpluses that we have in the US, let's say, for example, the trade surpluses that are about 31.6 billion, which is there. We believe that this trade surpluses are largely going to be used in buying Boeing aircrafts from US. So, the India is also bringing about defense deals which are in favor of US. So, US does not see India as a threat. But it definitely has, with the Trump administration, seen China as a major threat to its trade deficits which are there.
Now coming to the bigger issue or the focus of this discussion is that tariff war between or trade war between US and China. Now US has announced that it is going to raise tariff on 200 billion in Chinese goods to 25% from 10%. China has also reacted and it has gone for a retaliatory move. How do you see the situation?
The situation is pretty tense, which is there, and it is likely to result into a global war if it continues, because the two prime trading countries which are there are US and China. None of these countries can be ignored in terms of their actions or reactions to the entire world trade that is there. Many of the countries have decided to go, the European Union and the others have decided to go to the WTO against the US tariffs for steel or the others which are there being put through. So we do see that when these trade wars emanate, many people would approach the WTO for retaining the globalized structure that is there. But if the US does not listen to the WTO's relevance tends to become much lesser. And as a result, countries would withdraw from the WTO and the globalized structure that is there would be somehow under threat which is there. And whatever globalization we've seen in the past 2 decades would actually see a major blow.
When this trade war started in June, it was considered to be tit for tat. First US will do, then China will follow. What was the motive behind this kind of tariff war?
Prime reason which US has cited is primarily because it sees that its trade deficits are about 800 billion annually. And as a result, it is seeing that the major trade deficits come from China, which is 308 billion. And it is also citing reasons that there is intellectual theft by China. Now, these are specific reasons which US is giving, but one of the most important reason is that Chinese economy has been growing at a very fast pace and has established itself in the international market against US and other countries which is there. So, European Union was coming as a strong contender. Also, China has come as a strong contender to US in terms of the overall trading as well as economic strength that is concerned. Now, obviously, because US and China were at certain amount of a power stretch kind of a situation, US did not want the world economies to move closer to China. And China is gaining a lot of ground, whether it is with One Belt, One Road initiative that is concerned, or whether it is with its manufacturing units that is concerned, or its investments that are concerned in many countries that is there. China is slowly, gradually getting a grip over the world economic developments that are taking place in different economies. So US did want to somehow stall that overall development, and the best part was to stall it was to actually attack their exports, because the exports were the major contributors to the Chinese economy that is there. And hence it actually brought about that action of saying that we are going to be increasing tariffs on the Chinese goods which are there. China had little role in terms of not reacting, because China was seeing a slower growth in the past 2-3 years. Its only hope was that its exports continue to rise as they were rising, and so it might actually achieve its growth. Also, China has built up a certain amount of a capacity for the requisite amount of exports which is there. So if it actually suffers on exports, it will have unrest in its own country. So China really did not have much of an option but to retaliate to US, saying that we don't consider you to be the strongest nation dictating the terms of trade in the new era that is there. We are also an equal partner, and we can also dictate our terms if you dictate our terms to us. And hence the trade war was initiated primarily because their national interests were hurt, and China did not want to appear to be anywhere weaker than the US which is there.
China is also known for lower cost of production. Is this one of the reasons why they are dominating in the world market, and that is worrying US?
Well, there have been a lot of problems that have been associated with the China's exports that is there. And one of the major problems is that they are saying that they are selling at below the cost which they are producing. So we do not know exactly what are the Chinese economy's real cost of productions are. However, they do show it to the world that their cost of productions are the lowest. However, many countries say that they are not selling at their cost of production. They are even selling it at a lower rate, primarily to destroy the domestic industries of other countries and trying to gather strength in their markets that is there. China, with their economies of scale, have been able to reduce their costs, and they have been able to sell at a faster pace. So that is definitely worrying US. What is also worrying US is that neither the US is able to manufacture goods, nor is it able to create jobs for its people, which is a serious problem in its economy that is there.
What is the role of WTO? Because whenever we talk about export competitiveness, whenever we talk about export subsidy, WTO has a role in that. In this kind of situation, do you see any role for WTO?
Well, in this kind of a situation, usually if the retaliation does not take place, the countries can approach the WTO and file a complaint against the erring nation which is there. And the WTO can take an action in asking the country to change its policies, which may be in a nature which are in multilateral rule-based trading system which the WTO proposes. And thereby the WTO plays a stronger role in keeping the countries towards the globalized economies, in keeping the tariffs low. If you see, the WTO in past 2 to 3 decades has been able to reduce the tariffs to a larger extent in many of these economies. Even for India, where the US has filed a complaint against India for export subsidies that the Indian government is giving, India has been stating that it is planning to take an action in next 8 years to see that these subsidies are removed after 8 years, because it has been given that time frame. So, as a matter of fact, any country which is a partner in the WTO will be concerned that it may not be blocked from the WTO or from the overall trading parameters of the world which are there.
And do you see any possibility of ending trade war between US and China in near future?
Well, the US and China have actually said that they are willing to negotiate, though the stances are still, they are keeping themselves strong and they're saying that we will retaliate, but they're wanting to go for a negotiation between each other. So it is possible that the US and China may negotiate terms and may stop this trade war at, let's say, not hiking the tariffs as they are suggesting that is there. So it is possible that the negotiations and the bilateral negotiations may yield to a better situation in the trade.
And there is also indication from Chinese stock markets that China is going to blink first, because Chinese markets need foreign capital, especially stock markets. Do you believe this?
It is believed that where Chinese are being hurt in terms of exports, they are wanting to get more and more amount of investment, and hence they would not want to project any kind of a tariffs on the US companies. Also, it is believed that the Chinese know that their markets are extremely large, and which the US companies are targeting for, and they are holding that as a negotiation bet primarily for all the tariffs which they are wanting to put. So it's believed that if it works on investments, then it might actually take a lenient view towards the trade war which is there.
There is a meeting between US administration and European Union. Do you see some impact on negotiation between China and US after this talk?
Well, US would like to have allies with it. So whether it's India, whether it's European Union, or whether it is other countries, European Union has a strong say in the world trade which is there. So automatically, if it actually brings European Union towards its side, it will get a stronger stance against China, because what is US is projecting is that China is not the enemy only of US, but is an enemy for the world because of its exporting policies which are there. And as a result of the dying domestic units in many countries, they are wanting to have a retaliation to China, and so it is not only US-China, but it is China against other countries as well. So if the negotiations between European Union and US work towards each other and they become an ally, there would be more stronger action against China by US than what is estimated.
Now, one of the concerns is that China may devalue its currency to make its products more competitive. Do you agree with that?
Well, if they are actually losing on the tariff wars with US, it would not like to lose on the exports that is there. So the best policy to adopt would be to devalue their yuan which is there. And if they actually decide to devalue their currency, then they can probably manage to still reach out to the export markets which might have been lost because of the tariffs that is there. Because any importer who is wanting to import would like to see the total cost that he has to bear in terms of the import bill he is wanting to put in. So thereby the Chinese government's policy of reducing the value of its currency would automatically act in favor of its exports.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
You were listening to a discussion on US-China trade war and its impact. The participants were Professor Yamini Aggarwal, Economic Analyst, and Shishir Sinha, Journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. This program is also available on our website newsonair.nic.in. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsgtalks@gmail.com.